everyone. My name is Lauren. I am on the Ward 2 NPA Steering Committee. I use she, her pronouns. I'll be facilitating today's meeting. Can everyone online hear okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can, yeah.
Perfect. We all have mics in here, so I think none of us have to share, which is nice. But I figured, even though we're running a couple minutes late with tech stuff, why don't we go around, do introductions, make sure we're all familiar. I know it's been a minute since I've been at an all wards meeting. So I guess maybe we can go around the room first, and then we can end by going through our Zoom room. So I guess I introduced myself already.
Does that mean I'm next?
That means you're next.
Hi all, Dale Azaria. I've been on the Ward 6 Steering Committee for just over 4 years, which means that I am term limited out, which I am kind of bummed about because I love this gig. But we've got a bunch of new people who are ready and eager to get started, and I'm just looking to pass it off to them over the next few months. Oh, and one of them is online, which is awesome. So I'll pass it this way, I guess.
Wonderful. My name is Travis Washington. I live in Ward 5, and this is my first All Wards NPA meeting, but I often record the Ward 2 NPA.
Chris Aisley, Ward 3 NPA.
I'm Amy Malnowski, Ward 8 NPA, and I use she, her pronouns.
Carol Livingston, I'm from the Ward 1 NPA. I use she, her pronouns, please.
Tom Carroll, Ward 8 NPA. And, you know, I listened to Dale talking about, it's been 4 years. I think I might have been on this committee for 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure. I have to look back. But anyway, Ward 8 NPA. Thank you.
Barbara, you all know me. Hello, it's great to see you.
With the mic.
And Charlie's filming us. All right, Zoom room, would you like to introduce yourselves? I think Romy is off mute.
I don't know if you can hear us.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Romeo von Herman. I am in Ward 6. I'm a member of the steering committee, though I haven't been attending lately consistently due to bandwidth. But glad to be here. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Hannah Riley Fernandez. I am also part of the Ward 6 contingent, and I use she, her pronouns.
Nora.
Lauren, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, amazing. Okay, because Zoom is telling me you can't, but I believe you. So, hi everyone, I'm Nora. Sorry for my name being incorrect and video off. I'm at work, so trying to figure that all out. But I'm Nora, she, her pronouns, and I'm on the Ward 2 Steering Committee. Happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, y'all. So everyone in the real room has an agenda in front of them. So just quickly before we dive in, just highlighting the couple of things to go over. So we'll be going over the NPA Resolution Implementation. We'll talk a little bit about budgeting for the rest of the fiscal year, which ends essentially at the end of May, since we have to get everything submitted by the end of May, but technically the end of June. Potential summer projects, and then the last 15 minutes or so are dedicated to just any open discussion or just flex time, depending on if any of the discussions go a little bit over. So with that, let's get started with talking about the resolution implementation. Barbara, did you want to start us off talking about this, and then we can go from there?
I can give a little context, because we had started talking about this at the last All Wards in December. Just looking at how we can kind of like operationalize this NPA resolution that went into effect from the City Council last fall. It is linked in Civic Clerk if you ever need to refer back to that. But so a lot of the NPAs have had the discussions where you're kind of identifying the annual priorities, and where we left off at the last All Wards meeting was figuring out the process by which all of the NPAs will communicate those priorities to the City Council in a way that's like more formal and gives them something to work with and, makes it official. So I was hoping that we could set a deadline for folks, because I think I have the official list of priorities from 2 wards right now, which is Ward 1 and Ward 5. So the rest of y'all have to work on that. And I know that we're kind of coming up on the end of the NPA year in terms of like summer break. So I think last time around we were talking that we said that it might make sense to submit the priorities towards like the beginning of the new fiscal year, because that, it's like a turnover time, transition time, and it gives everybody a little bit more wiggle room to bring it back to the NPA and vote on those priorities. So yeah, I don't know if anybody has any more questions about that before we look at like what a deadline might need to be. Because I'm just putting that out there, like that's what I think makes sense, but it's, it's the NPA's priorities.
I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
My take is that these priorities are to be communicated to City Council and also for us to kind of do with what we wish. Mm-hmm. Do I kind of have that right? Like, is there any other expectation of what this is about?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it feels nebulous because it is, and this is the first year that like people are going through this, and I don't think the City Council really knows what to expect from the NPAs. So yeah, it's up to you. I think like from my perspective, it makes sense to have some kind of like a ask for like, this is the follow through that we're requesting on this particular topic. Like, we don't just want to hear you talk to us about housing, for example. We want to like see the plan or whatever the kind of like follow through that the NPA is requesting. I think that makes sense to communicate along with like the topic that you're prioritizing.
That we can ask the city to help us.
Right.
That's helpful.
I see Nora has her hand up.
Hey all, I was just curious to clarify. So is having the individual wards submit priorities to the city, that's new. That came out of the resolution that Ward 1 brought forth, correct?
Well, it was a committee.
To make sure I understand.
Yeah, it was a committee of people, and Chris was on the committee, Jonathan was on the committee, and I forget who the third person was. And you met with city, I think the attorneys from the city as well as city city councils.
From Ward 5 was the menu. We met with a group from CEDO, the city attorney's office, and a couple of councilors to kind of hash through the resolution that was ultimately adopted.
And then it was brought to each ward to be voted on and approved by the attendees of each ward, and every ward had, approved it. So it didn't come from a particular ward. It was a group effort, which included ward steering committee folks, city people, as well as councilors.
I'm making sure no one else has their hand before I do think that it makes sense to do it at the beginning of the NPA year. I know that doesn't quite align with the beginning of anything else that City Council does, whether it's the fiscal year or their terms. But I think the timing, and especially in some of the wards where we are term limited, so there may be elections and, turnover of the steering committee, I think that I would agree that makes the most sense of when to do it. I also think it probably makes sense to try and consolidate it between all the wards as much as possible. I imagine that there will be, like, if it's more process-related things of, like, when when someone comes to talk about housing, we expect X, Y, Z. I would imagine we would all agree to that, but I also imagine that there's ward-specific things.
Because my understanding, and it was through Jonathan, but maybe it's just trying to figure it out, is that it was really important that our two city councilors know what we really want to hear from them and what we want them to advocate for. And our 5 that we chose, 2 of them, 3 of them really are pretty Ward 1 specific.
Okay.
So,
So it's more like what you want to hear from your city councilor, like when they come and have the.
no,
Or from-
because
okay.
we'll sometimes tell them that too.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're going to be making decisions, if it comes
I
up in
see.
committee, if it's
I
going to
see.
come forward on the agenda, if this is going to be an active conversation among city councilors, we want you to come talk to us before that happens.
Can I just add to that? I think it would be really valuable also to have it be, this is an issue that we want the city council to take up. And this is our way of asking our representatives to do that.
It's true.
Just adding that to
Yeah,
what you're saying.
advocacy in a different angle, yes, it's
Yeah.
true.
A more proactive
Yeah.
approach.
So are you wanting us to come up with some sort of uniform idea of, I mean, can we agree that we want these priorities to get into Barbara by,
Can you share what they are?
what our 5 are?
For purposes of discussion.
Sure, I mean, is that, I don't want to
right?
walk, I don't want to, okay, these are, I'll be quick. Because Ward 1 is up by the university, so development agreements and MOUs with UVM and UVMMC, so the hospital as well as UVM, we want to be part of those development agreements. Traffic management that could impact pedestrians and cyclists and improving public transit. Throwing everything in there together. The third one is tax burden redistribution, which is certainly something all of us could do. Use of parks and development of open space. And finally, activity impacting the Ward 1 infrastructure. So maybe it's helpful, maybe, Tom, your question is spurring that. Would it be helpful for folks who haven't gotten theirs in yet to hear what other people have done?
Yeah,
And then it
also,
gives you some
if we're going to collectively present some unified document to the.
I don't know that we are. That worries me a little bit, to be honest, because I think they are, in many cases, ward-specific.
Yeah, so I know in the conversation we had in December, we talked about kind of compiling everything into one document that would go onto the city council agenda at some point when it's all finalized. And then, that's the place where the council has to say, yes, we have received this. These are the priorities that our NPAs are bringing to us. And individual wards can do follow-up with the city councilor. So I know Ward 1 and Ward 5 have already sent those documents to their specific councilors. But again, this is the first year of doing any of this, and I think it's kind of, we can see what works and see what doesn't work and refine the process in future years too.
From a logistical standpoint, I do imagine that even if they're separate, which I think, thank you for sharing yours, that was really helpful for me. Even if they're separate issues, I think having one document that is a reference document of here is what all 8 of the NPAs, or whatever the number is, submitted, and these are their top 5 priorities for each. And there may be overlap. Of course, the university is probably pretty unique to Ward 1, but you mentioned tax burden, that might be something that multiple wards share, and that could also be useful in how city council communicates to us and saying okay, we know all the wards are interested in this, or the half of the wards are interested in this, so making sure to engage, just to kind of streamline the process a little bit.
And given that you're delivering this list to the council, to your councilors, is there a negotiation that then occurs? I mean, do they just take that list and sort of follow your priorities, or do they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of it's a surprise, to be honest, because they're pretty sensitive, come pretty regularly. I mean, they all come regularly, and we have regular conversations, so I don't think any of those are probably a surprise to them.
Yeah, in our case, too, the councilors show up and
Yeah.
give an update every month. Show up is putting it a bit crude.
Right,
But,
So do we want to make a decision about when to get these in, and then when to have them be published as a whole and sent to city council? Is that something that?
That's what I would really advocate for, just so that I think like, I don't want to let the momentum around this resolution kind of like, fade away or anything. And the city council is expecting to hear from the NPAs at some point because they passed this resolution a few months ago now. But at the same time, I know that not every ward has had this discussion yet, and it is something that like fundamentally needs to be like crowdsourced and discussed and then voted on. So I don't know what that looks like. I just wanted to bring it up to everybody again and make sure again that we don't lose sight of this.
I think there's a question. Did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry that I got here late. I could not find parking. That was like nuts. I've never experienced that.
Yes.
So I apologize if I missed this, but it sounds like from reading this agenda, it says the part of the thing we're talking about is creating the city's side of the resolution. So is there yet anything that city councilors are accountable to once the wards give their priorities?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not yet.
There was a lot of push, like we wanted to have the city councilors come to the meeting, and we were basically told we cannot require the city councilors to come to the meetings and go there, so we, take it on faith, follow up. But, I mean, we're fortunate in Ward 3, we have, a counselor that likes to come, and we hear, I said we're fortunate in Ward 3 is that we have a counselor that we hear from quite a lot, the other one not so much. In terms of this discussion, I think it's worth noting that all the NPAs kind of have their own character and personality, but more importantly, structurally, we all have a different set of bylaws, and we all have elections at different point. And I think, if I recall, Ward 1, you just had your elections up months. So right now for you, this makes a lot of sense to get it in, right? You would just, organize. But a number, I think 2 and 3 and a few others, we do ours in September. So I think from our perspective, we're like, we'd rather get it underway in September, maybe, use the summer months to put out a survey and collect some more quantifiable data and create a bigger opportunity for more people to weigh in, particularly for people who have an opinion but may not be able to attend a meeting in the evening because of, work commitments or whatever. And I think that holds true, particularly if we want to get the perspective of the working people of our community, those who work in the service sector and hospitality, for example, so.
Could we, to that point, could we set a deadline of if you have in your bylaws regular elections in X month, please submit your annual priorities no later than 2 months following that, and leave it a little bit vague, but have it time bound. So like if you just had your elections in April, yes, it's April, so you would have to submit, Ward 1 would have to submit by June. And if we in Ward 2, we have ours in September, we would have to submit by November. It's rolling, but I feel like that's a really good point, Chris, of like, I feel like the elections are kind of the important part, and gathering like that is the important part from my perspective, at least.
Yeah, it's kind of, we can set priorities now, but then it's a whole different, elections different. It's like, do we really want to tie the new people to what was done 6 months before,
I don't want to hammer this or be tedious at this point, but another way to ask my question to Carol, or maybe generally, is given that your counselors come to your meetings and there was no surprise to them that the priorities you've developed, was there a shared or common understanding that gave rise to these priorities, given that relationship you have with your counselors? And would that facilitate this process? With counselors going back to city council, am I making sense? Or?
I'm not sure what you're asking for me. Are you asking the process that we went through?
Yeah, and sort of, was it collaborative in any way with the counselors, given that they're part of the discussion every month?
Yes, yes, they were there. I think they were trying to be respectful of the fact that the whole group was basically putting forward their different ideas, and then we voted on the ones that, voted on all those ideas. Yeah, it's a good question.
I have another question, and again, it's about the context. When we say the word annual priorities, like priorities for what? Priorities that we want updates from city council on? Priorities that we want to see like measurable progress on from our counselors? Like how is that word being used in this sense?
My understanding is that it was our priorities about what we would like to participate in any discussions that the city council is involved in. We don't want to legislate their process, but we do want to say, we'd like to raise our hand and say we'd really, whenever you talk about the MOUs with UVM, we really want to be part of that conversation. Please don't make any decisions about that without talking with us.
That's good. That's very clarifying, actually. Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. So the way I'm looking at it is in two ways here. In terms of priorities, I think, again, this is from my perspective. Boards being asked what their priorities are is pretty straightforward because there are two things Ward can expect from itself and from its council. One for the council is whatever they're working on to be updated to the ward, and then on the other hand, for the ward to look around within its community and see what are the areas that are important for discussion, just at a neighborhood level. This way, your neighbors know what they're looking for, such as safety on the street, people supposed to be riding their bikes where they're supposed to be riding bikes, and quite a number of other internal issues on a neighborhood level that can be discussed on a priority level, so to speak. On the other hand, what I noticed is that since I've lived here in Burlington, is that there's way so many meetings, and everybody's pulling you different directions, and that, and again, I'm saying this because I also have a job where I'm like incredibly busy, and I haven't had a whole lot of time to attend even our own NPA, which I feel terrible about it. And this also creates a situation where the bandwidth each individual becomes smaller and smaller, where the topics are being brought up, such as what's a priority for our neighborhood, it's difficult to focus on because there's so many meetings going on from council to neighborhood to you name it. It's like there's a lack of focus, but so many different meetings at the same time. So I'm just surprised where what conversation can be had in terms of prioritizing when can we do meetings at the same time, what topics can we really discuss within 30 to 31 days, whether we expect a conversation from our own counselors, whether they attend mandatory or voluntarily. So it's been really I've been here since 2021, and I've been attending almost every meeting that I can think of in this city, and it's been quite the experience. And after nearly 5 years being here, I'm like, what exactly are we talking about really? Where are we going in terms of our NPA meetings, city council meetings, all ward meetings? It's like I keep hearing priorities discussion in most meetings that I've attended, but I haven't seen anything tangible that at a neighborhood level that we think of, in part because there's way too many meetings. And again, this might just be my view, but it's been a very interesting thing to watch since I've been here. Thank you.
So I'm just keeping an eye on time. Probably like 5 or so more minutes we can flex for this discussion. Any other thoughts, questions?
I guess to Romeo's point, I kind of hope that selecting a couple, a handful of priorities will help to give a little focus to the NPA maybe, and it could help you kind of scaffold out the year of if these are our priorities, then who are we inviting to speak, and what are the discussions that we need to have to carry out to show that that's our priority or something like that. So maybe it is a helpful tool to get towards a little more focus. And then I guess before we wrap up on this item, I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to the other sheet of paper that's on the agenda, and it's also on Civic Clerk. This is just something that I put together to show what I'm thinking for the other parts. So the resolution has 3 chunks. It's this is what we're asking the NPAs to do, this is what we're asking the city council to do, and this is what we're asking the city administration to do. And I'm kind of the city administration in that scenario. So this is, I went through the bullet points of what is asked of the city, and kind of chunked out the different pieces that I thought made sense. So I don't want to go into all of it right now, but if you're interested, I'd encourage you to take a look and let me know if you have any feedback and if this seems about right to you. But that's what that page is.
So, we kind of started by talking about when will each ward provide this list of annual priorities and to whom. right? Like, do we each give them to Barbara and she makes one document? Do we each give them to our city council representatives? Or do we each give them to the city council as a whole? And we kind of then got into this timing question, right? Some wards have already done this. My ward, for example, we started this conversation, didn't really finish it. Other wards might want to wait until the fall to do this. And I feel like it would be really good if we can wrap that up. And perhaps I'll just propose, given the different needs and timing, that for this year at least, we do it on a ward-by-ward basis and not try to create one document, because I think it would be hard if somebody did this a month ago and somebody else is not going to do it for 4, 5, 6 months, then the original ones are sort of stale by then and perhaps frustrated that nothing's happened. And yet it doesn't make sense to rush it. So I would just propose that we each do it, and just to be more specific, I would propose that we each plan to communicate to our city council members and to Barbara, and so that she can collect them, and perhaps by next year we can move to a more uniform schedule.
I like that proposal.
And maybe this is what you were proposing, but I don't know the exact mechanism for doing this. I suppose you could just submit it as like a document through Lori with Civic Clerk, but being able to have that either appear like prominently as like, this was Ward 1's documentation of their NPA priorities, either in the consent agenda or whatever. So it's showing up on Civic Clerk, like very much in the public record for
On the
other
city
wards to be like, I want mine to do that too.
On city councils.
Yeah. Not just in their email, but like also showing up in the public record.
Nora has a question or comment.
Sorry, y'all. I can't figure out how to just write a comment or even ask a question, so I don't want to interrupt. But I wasn't sure if we were voting. I just figured I would share my thoughts super quickly. I agree with everything that has been said as a proposal. I think Lauren's idea of having it be on a rolling basis is good. I also like the idea of a joint document that we all have access to and share, just for the sake of cohesion, and then involving Barbara in the submitting process. Thank you.
Chris, is that a hand raise or a pen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think the other thing we need to remember is that the counselors, like the NPAs themselves, all have kind of different personalities too. And, when I went back and reread the founding resolution in prep for tonight's meeting, looking at the things that were specifically enumerated, trying to figure out, the intent behind it and everything, I think what I gathered is the intent was, to provide a forum for the counselors to kind of hear the concerns of, the folks that get there. And I feel like in some cases I've been I think I've been to all of the NPAs at this point. I think I've been to some where the counselors, kind of sit back and listen very well, and I've been to other NPAs where the counselors tend to dominate and kind of, try to set the agenda rather than, respecting the people who come and share their opinion. And I just wanted to say, I think that, it would be helpful if, the counselors would come and take them, outside of the dedicated update section, maybe take a step back to listen to what people have to say and bring that back.
So do we want, as a next step, maybe if we are in, this isn't technically a vote, so I'm trying to avoid using voting language, but if we're all in agreement in general about the process of creating our own roughly around the time of our elections within, I'm a time-bound person, so within, let's say, 1 to 2 months after elections for each ward, and then that would be shared with Barbara and our city councilors. And then to Chris's point, maybe the next step at our next all wards is our expectation of what comes next. I don't think we have enough time to talk about it today. But I do think that's a really important point of like, okay, we're submitting this, we're holding up our end of the bargain. Now, how is that returned to us in what is as standardized as it can be processed? So I propose that maybe our next all wards meeting, that can be a discussion that we have. Okay, I see nods. Again, not voting, so nothing passes. Okay, so let us move on then to the next item around budgeting. So we had roughly split up this time. There was a request to go over the process for how we submit use of budget forms. So Barbara will quickly talk us through the process for the first 10-15 minutes, and then we can have the remainder of the time to discuss if there's any joint ways that we would like to use funds or share ideas about how wards plan to use the funds. So Barbara, I pass back to you.
Cool, yeah, so I'll just go really quickly through this. A lot of you know how this works. Oh, that looks terrible. Okay. So the city attorney's office has some pretty strict rules for us around the use of city funds. All of the uses of NPA funds have to fit into these 5 categories. Being open and accessible to all voters of the city residing in the ward, to provide residents with information about city programs and activities, to help obtain residents' views of city needs, to help provide residents with an opportunity to make recommendations relating to government decisions, and then to provide advice to city commission, city council related to these specific activities. So it's a little convoluted. It's like based on the language of the 1982 resolution that established the NPAs, and it's quite a conservative reading. So what we have to do is work within this framework and figure out what the eligible expenses are. So categories of eligible expenses include things like outreach materials, flyers, lawn signs, stickers, ads, mailers, translations of those written materials. Those are all appropriate uses of funds. Same thing for meeting supports, so things like snacks and drinks, office supplies, and then like services during the meetings, like interpretation, like ASL, and childcare services. Equipment and facilities are also good. So like wards 4 and 7 has gotten some like AV equipment, space rental fees. That's sometimes a thing that comes up. And then the new eligible expense as of this year is community projects and events. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And then the generally things that are not allowed are charitable contributions, which includes any donations to individuals or families or like nonprofits. Wish we could do that, but not with city funds, unfortunately. But that is something like if the NPA wanted to organize a separate pot of money or like a separate fundraiser, that would be okay. It just can't be the specific dedicated NPA funds. No alcohol, no controlled substances, no supplies or services for a different fiscal year, just mostly for record keeping. And like if there was ever an audit, we want to make sure that everything that is purchased is going towards the correct fiscal year. And then anything else that doesn't really fit into one of those 5 categories that was on the first slide. Great stuff. So the projects and events is new guidance that I was able to convince the city attorney's office about. And this just means that the NPAs can sponsor projects and events as long as they meet at least one of these 3 goals. So promoting the NPA, providing residents with information about city programs or activities, and gaining input from residents about city needs. And this is where you can be a little bit creative. So you can promote the NPA or like have that be a component of your event or your project just by like saying that it was made possible by the NPA. It's really that easy. You can like put out an FPF post about your event and say, thank you so much for like the Ward 1 NPA for supporting this event. And that satisfies that. The other example that Ward 1 was actually working on right now is replacing the plastic liner for one of the community skating rinks. And as long as we have like a little sign or some kind of notice that it was made possible by the NPA, that is an unacceptable use of funds. Providing residents with information about city programs and activities. This is also like kind of easy to do. Just make sure that like if you're at an event, you're hosting your event, that you're trying to engage with people a little bit. Yeah, the example I gave here was hosting a community picnic with guests from city departments and commissions to share about their work. So that doesn't need to be like the main focus of the event, but if it's, if it's part of it, then you're educating people about the city departments, and that is great. And then the other example here is tabling at a park to survey residents about neighborhood issues while handing out ice cream. So just like thinking about these creative ways where you can like have fun and have it be community focused with an element of like talking about the NPA or talking to people about what they need in the neighborhood.
Can I ask you something? I feel like I'm splitting hairs. To go back to your earlier slide, there was they said voters. Well, I'm sorry, one of the green one that was hard to read for you. The very first one, it says to open accessible to all voters. And then from 2 to 5, it's residents. Was that an intentional discrepancy or?
Probably not.
Okay, so we can assume that if it's all, I'm assuming residents, that's more comfortable.
I typically go with residents.
Okay.
Yeah, again, I think this is all just like, it's so confusing sometimes because the city attorney's office has to work with this resolution from 1982 for everything related to the NPAs. And I don't think they were very specific on that. But the way that it works now in the NPAs, it's always residents.
Okay, thank you.
We don't worry about people's voter status.
Right, thank you.
The original resolution specifically used the words voter.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I would go back and check that, but I would agree that it seems like it's evolved over time.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Well, all legal residents at least are now allowed to vote in our local elections, so.
All right, and this photo is horribly tiny. But a quick review of the purchasing process. First, you need to decide as a ward how to spend your budget. So everybody gets $3,000 a year, and it's part of your role as steering committee members to help facilitate that decision-making process around how that money is going to get spent. So thinking about what are the NPA's typical fixed costs every year as a starting point, thinking about goals or projects or events that you might want to host, like maybe you pick one event and you budget for that, and that's like $1,000 out of your budget. And then also thinking about what local businesses or like services you could utilize and then keep that money kind of flowing in our community. When you're receiving funds from the city, there's 2 ways to do it. So if you need prepayment, if you needed to pay a vendor ahead of time. So for example, if you're getting food from a restaurant for the meeting, that needs to be submitted to me about 2 to 3 weeks in advance because that's how long it takes for the city to cut a check. And you submit the request for payment form for the cost that you were quoted, again, at least 2 or 3 weeks in advance directly to me. And then receiving payment after the fact as a reimbursement is the same process. You fill out the request for payment form, you submit it to me along with any itemized receipts that you had, and then that also takes about 2 or 3 weeks to mail out. And this big red box applies to both of those steps. So anytime anyone is receiving a check from the city, they have to have an IRS W-9 form on file with the city, and that just allows us to pay you. Nobody can get paid without it. And that's like a one-time thing. And then the last part of the process is just you can request updates from me at any time about how your budget is looking, how much you've spent, how much, like if I'm missing any receipts for you, but I can give you budget updates at any time. Where do I find the forms? They are all in the All Wards Google Drive, which I believe everybody in this room should be on. If you're not, you can contact me. But I do keep that pretty updated. On the left is that IRS W-9 form. Again, it's one time. If I receive your W-9, I can put you into the city's payment system, and then you are good to go. I can pay you really quickly after that. And then on the right, that is the request for payment form, and that has to be submitted every time you have an NPA expense. Although if you have like a bunch of receipts, you can group them together. That's why there's like a couple of rows on that form. So you just put yourself in as like the requester, and you put in your own address, and then list out each of your receipts, and then send me those itemized receipts as well, and I will get that processed. The last thing I wanted to mention is the city's tax exempt certificate. This is also in the shared Google Drive, and the city, because you're purchasing things with city funds, you don't have to pay sales tax. And typically, our accounts payable office does not like to reimburse people for sales tax. So I just request that if you are purchasing, like normally food doesn't have sales tax on it, but any like supplies do. So like you can just show it to the cashier and they'll know exactly what it is and take off the sales tax, as long as you like show them the form on your phone or something. And yep, the last thing about budgeting is the fiscal year. So our fiscal year operates from July 1 to June 30th. After June 30th, any unspent funds from the $3,000 budget are returned to the city's general fund, which is great if you like city services. So I request that you submit your expenses to me by May 31st, just so that we have a little bit of wiggle room for payment processing. But if you do have expenses that come up in June, just let me know and we can work through that on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be some on this one. I mean, the fiscal year ends on June 30th. We should be allowed to spend money there until then. Some folks should kind of like want to do like, more of a social event, like following the school year, which would be like late June or something. Kind of limits you in a way that way. I'm just wondering if you could shed some light on why we're really only allowed to spend most of 11 months of not the June.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just because the checks take so long to clear, because it takes about 3 weeks. And this is something that I also don't personally understand. Yeah, did you?
I'll just say, having worked for the state, it's the same thing. It's like they want everything done because the people who have to do the paperwork just push. One thing you can do often is prepay for things. That works.
Yeah.
So that you can get your invoice in, even if you're not actually having the event until, June 15th or whatever. Because it is still valid. They just make such a pain out of it. It's like you could pull your hair. Yes.
Yeah, like if you were going to have a block party in June or something, just try to put together a rough budget for that ahead of time. And then you can submit the request for payment form with that like projected expenses, and we can cut you a check for that amount. Any other questions?
I remember there was a rule before of if you're receiving a quote of a certain amount, you need to get at least 3 quotes before proceeding with it. Like we used that when we did postcard mailers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's $2,500.
Okay.
So I didn't include that because I doubt that anybody will reach that threshold.
Okay.
Yes, good point.
So I gotta ask about childcare. Could you be clear to everyone about childcare, reimbursing for childcare?
Yeah. This is a question that I've brought up with several people in the city, and I have not gotten satisfying answers. They don't want to touch this because of liability, but I know that it's something that NPAs have offered in like recent history, like even like 2018, 2019. So I am very curious to learn about how that used to work, and then hopefully put together some kind of protocol for how we could bring that back in a way that the city is okay with. But right now, it's a gray area, and I don't know how that would work. Unless we were hiring like official licensed childcare practitioner. That's what I've heard from the city, is that they need they have liability concerns and they would want to hire professionals to do that. But my understanding is that that's never been the case, but it would get reimbursed anyways. So it's a great question, and I would love to, if anybody wants to work on this with me, like please contact me. Did you have to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, is there anything you need from us that could help you really apply pressure because it's such a barrier for people participating.
No, it really is. I mean, I think a starting point would be like for folks who, I mean, like you, Charlie, who know how some of these things used to work like 5-10 years ago. That would be helpful to talk about. And it's also like, 4 and 7 has such an ideal meeting space for this because you've got a gym right next door in the Miller Center, but a lot of the other locations are just not well suited to providing childcare. Like at City Hall, there's really nowhere to do that. Even in the DPW building, it's just, so that's another barrier. But yeah, this is a big project, and yeah, Chris, do you have something to add?
I was just going to ask, because I've heard mixed bags on this. I mean, I understand the sentiment. I think it makes sense. But I've talked to people who've been doing the NPA, I think, a lot longer than most of us in this room, going back to like the 80s and 90s. And we're told, yeah, we've tried it, we've spent the money. And then we spend the money and people come up and it doesn't get utilized and it ends up spending money that we could have used on something else. So I'm just curious, do we have any data? Like, I know people like the idea, but when it has been done, has it actually been utilized? And do we have any data on it, I guess is what I'm asking.
So I can respond to that if you give me the microphone.
Okay, so.
I like it when Charlie gets from behind the camera. Breaks the wall there. What's the fourth wall?
So wards 2 and 3 have done this like 3 different times over the years, and basically what ends up happening, so we would do this at the old multi-gen center, where there were always extra rooms off to the side, you see. And there's also a facility to do it in the Old North End Community Center. But I know for a fact that whenever we offered this, it almost never got used, except by people who were coming to give a presentation. So if I was going to make a presentation about the waterfront on the agenda, I might use the childcare. And so basically that's who was using it. It was the people who were, like, legislators would use it, et cetera. But the general public generally wouldn't use it, although I also agree that wards 4 and 7 has a unique setup where the kids can literally play in the gymnasium. But I just thought I'd throw that in. Thank you.
And I have a question in response to that. Did you say when you witnessed that, like how far back, and also knowing it was tried 2 or 3 times, can you speak at all to how long the duration was? Because sometimes when there's a new service, it takes a while for people to really become aware of it and kind of catch up. And so do you know how long, like how many months consecutively that was provided?
So in each case, it went at least 6 months. So I think the first time, with just going by my memory, was probably about 2006 or 7. And then it didn't work out very well, so we tried it again around 2010 or 12. But the way we had it set up is that, so we would actually kind of hire someone for $25 minimum. And then if nobody was utilizing it within the first hour or 2, they would just leave. But if they stayed for the whole 2 hours or something, it would be like $50 or something. That's kind of how we did it in the past. But it never really caught on. So we had a lot of discussions about it, and so we tried it, and it didn't work. And so several years later, with new steering committee members, they wanted to try it again, so we tried it again, but the same thing happened. So that's my memory.
Thanks.
What if we use our priorities discussion to probe our NPA attendees as a way of seeing if there is interest? I feel like that might be an appropriate place to at least start to get the data. And then it's kind of, okay, how much are we willing to fight for this and like work with the city to understand how this would work?
I think the only tricky thing about that is if you're pulling the attendees, you're missing the people who are not there because they don't have childcare.
Right.
So is there a way, if we're taking that approach, is there a way we could really gather input from everyone in the whole ward and to capture folks who aren't there?
Yeah, and I think Chris kind of alluded to this when we were talking about the priorities, and I know we've tried different flavors of this in Ward 2, like having online surveys and like trying to understand like what people want to get out of the NPAs. I think that's a good way. I know, like, I was thinking that's something that we would do for Ward 2 is like not just at the meeting, that specific meeting, because people come for all sorts of reasons or can't come for all sorts of reasons. So I feel like that's a good like precursor anyway to have that.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Okay. Any other questions for Barbara on the reimbursements, how the process works, before we talk about how we can use the funds in other ways? Okay, so one of the line items under this was talking about requesting funds to update the NPA zine. So that was something, Barbara, that you wanted.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Yes.
So I think I've talked to a couple of folks about this so far, but basically, the really nice NPA zines that were created a couple of years ago are like desperately out of date. Like all of the meeting times and locations are wrong. So to me, it's not a great resource for like outreach purposes at this point. So I contacted Christine Tyler Hill, who designed the zines initially, and she said it would be about 3 or 4 hours of her time, like at the high end, and so about $300 or $400 for updating the digital files of the zine and the poster. So I just wanted to start there and get the digital file updated so that it doesn't, like, I'm not even going to update the meeting times and locations because we know that those change. So it'll just, like, direct people to the website for the most up-to-date info. And then hopefully we don't have to touch those files again and we can just keep reprinting them in the future. But so I just wanted to ask for each ward to consider contributing like $75 or so to that project. And then I will contact her and make sure we can get that done before the end of the fiscal year. And then maybe do another print run soon.
We plan to include it in our budget conversation.
Super, thanks.
So then we wanted to use the rest of, the rest of this time to talk about, I mean, we could use this either as brainstorm for folks sitting here. Historically, I know wards have not always spent all of their budget. If we want to use it as a brainstorm to how the different wards are using it, different ideas, or if we'd also like to use it as a brainstorm of how the wards can come together to use it to do an event, and this kind of potentially segues into our next agenda item anyway. But I open the floor with those two potential paths that we could go down. Thoughts? We've talked for many years about having a summer barbecue as like an all wards NPA thing. But I guess that could potentially be difficult with the fiscal year restrictions. Like if we must have it in June then, right? If we're like putting money together to like buy food.
I mean, if you wanted to have it in June, I would just need the requests in like sometime in May. But if you wanted to do it in July, we could do reimbursements.
Okay. So like we could, but that would be out of FY '27.
Out of FY '27.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's really annoying.
That is very bad timing for planning any summer events.
So
Yeah.
I will just offer a curmudgeonly opinion, which is I don't think an all wards social event makes any kind of sense at all, because to me the whole point of the NPA is that it is local and that you would be having something in your neighborhood with your neighbors, and a citywide event is a citywide event, not a neighborhood event. So that's just me being curmudgeonly, but I figure the point is,
I would agree
the
with
point is to get opinions.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
There's one.
I will counter that just with one particular idea, and that is, I overheard a conversation, I think we all got an email today from someone running for state office, And so my counter would be, would it be appropriate to have, and this is where segueing into the next item a little bit, have an all wards sanctioned candidate forum for, you know, whichever statewide candidates, because I think most of us, I know there's some differences, but outside of the House, most of us are represented by the same folks by the state, have that, and then maybe have food or something that we would pay for to really get people there, which to me kind of kills two birds with one stone a little bit of like, it does, you know, we get people out and then we don't have to like plan the mechanics of like 17 different candidates that then also have to go to 8 other meetings and all of that. So I personally feel kind of strongly about having something. And then I know July, like in Ward 2, we take July and August off. So it also consolidates that and really, you know, gives people the bang for their buck. Was that I couldn't tell if that was a hand, Chris. You keep doing it in like a way that I'm like, is it just stretching?
Yeah, no, yeah, we've got a couple things, Ward 3, like a state's attorney thing that we're planning, and once that's, if other folks want to hop on co-sponsors, because I know that that's kind of going to have broad appeal. Although I think there may be some benefit of having, you know, for the ledge candidates, having them come into the individual neighborhoods. I mean, you know, if we're going to do an all wards thing, it's going to have to be somewhere in the city, and, you know, depending on where it's, you know, the candidates are going to be talking in an area that they may or may not be representing. So that was the thought there. But I also agree, like, you know, in the years past, we've done stuff in July, and it's kind of been, you know, it's like, because the primary is the first in August, so it's like you work backwards from that. So.
I mean, another option is that, for example, I was talking to Amy, is that in June, we've already got a commitment from 3 of the state Senate candidates, and any of you would be welcome to offer that to your folks. So maybe another way of doing it, too. I mean, it's still on our house. So other people can come and talk about their particular wards, and these are our concerns, but.
We have the state Senate people on next week's agenda, because 2 of the challengers have come out. We haven't heard anything from the incumbents, so we've reached out. We're going to reach out again, but I thought there were 4 candidates.
For the House?
For the state Senate.
Yes, there are. Tanya couldn't come.
Oh.
But Nikhil could come, and Martine could come, and Elaine could come. So that's who's coming. Elaine Haney, Nikhil Goyle, is that how you, Goyle? And then Martine. Tanya couldn't come, but she is the 4th candidate.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Was that recently announced?
We haven't published it yet.
No, I mean like her candidacy, because I couldn't find anything when I looked a few weeks ago.
Oh, Elaine's?
No, I knew about Elaine and I knew about Nikhil, but I wasn't sure about Tanya. I'd heard some things, but I couldn't find anything official, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll send her an email.
Okay.
So yeah, we're kind of segueing, which I kind of did. I did. But I guess on the budget, is there anything that anyone would like to talk specifically about the budget before we move into any summer things, or we can kind of keep it fluid? I just wanted to check because I segued us a little bit.
I just want to say one thing, and this is something I brought up with Barbara, is that would it be better to just not budget $3,000 if so many of us are not using our $3,000? We use a good chunk of it because we have to pay for our location for rental, and many of you guys don't. But we still have probably $1,000 left. Barbara was quick to say, and I really respected her help with this, was that money is your stake. You know, that's your stake in the game. That's your stake, and that's not, these aren't her words, these are mine. But basically, it gives you some influence. It gives you, you know, a foot in the door. There are really opportunities of things that you can do, particularly knowing we can stretch some of that a little bit, which is really good to hear. So that's just something to think, you know, if that had ever come to mind, that this was hard giving money back and maybe we should just have less budgeted for us. I don't know if you want to add to that, Barbara, or.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past, the NPA budgets have been big, they've been small, and I think it's hard to get back that money if you, like, give it up. Like, it'll take years and years for the NPAs to, like, gain that back if it were to, if like, reducing the budget was something that the city council wanted to do. And I don't know if it is. I mean, they're going to be doing they're putting together the budget like this month. So we'll see what the NPA budgets look like for next year. Like there is no guarantee that it's going to be $3,000 again. But yeah, my perspective on this is like the NPAs don't have any power necessarily, like in a political sense, but you do have this money that's allocated, and I think that is where you can have some influence and bring people together, and like use those resources strategically, should you choose to. And I know that's where it's hard to get people organized and to get people to like bring ideas to the floor and make things happen. But like I would just be hesitant to give up that power.
Well, and to illustrate that is a comment I think you shared with us, or maybe it was just with me, but when you met with Parks and Rec, I mean, that might be an interesting addendum. I mean, because you asked them about the plastic, and that occurred to them that they maybe could connect with all the NPAs. I'm not quite sure what they, are they looking for some money, or are they just looking for that's another connection that can be made as an active kind of community building process, because there are funds there and there's a group of people there.
Yeah, that was a question I kind of put out to Parks to say, like, if there's projects in the wards that a couple extra $100 would really help with, or that like 3 or 5 volunteers could help with, that's something that the NPAs are well positioned to do like right now. So like let me know if that ever comes up. So that was the conversation I had with Parks. Okay. Yeah.
Just on the budgeting topic, I think this is a newer thing. I think Charlie, you were the one who originally suggested this to us, and then Barbara really followed through on it. But we're just in the early stages of hiring a summer intern. So that's how we'll be using the remainder of our budget as a summer intern, as a college student, to help us with our like outreach strategies and campaign in the fall. So I really appreciate your creativity and like encouraging us on that, because I think it can be hard to be like, what do we do with this, or what are our options, and really being imaginative. So we'll see how that goes.
How much do they cost?
So it has to be the living wage of the city. So I think that's $19.11.
Yeah, it's something specific like that.
Yeah, and then it would be like 10 hours a week. And so I think we were saying like for 10 weeks over the summer, something like that.
And I'll also just throw it out there that BHS students have to do a certain number of community service hours. And if you know any like high school students in the ward, that could also be a way to find some summer energy.
Great idea.
So I probably should just say one thing. So about what the total budget is for each ward. I'll just point out that until about like 2018 or 2019, it was only like $300 or $400 per ward. So it was like $300 per ward until like, I don't know, 2015 or something, and then it went up to $400 per, and then all of a sudden it jumped, like by around 2018 or 19, somewhere in there. So yeah, I would also caution people about giving up, because you may not see it again. So.
Yeah, and there was one, I think it was last year, one of the wards overspent, and we underspent, and we covered that overage, out of our surplus, so to speak. And so, I think thinking, as we are hiring an intern, I think we're going to work within our budget, but there's always the option of consulting with the other MPAs and saying, look, we're doing this project, and maybe we need a little more. Do you have something left over that you could donate to that? So, which we've done, and I think that if we collaborate that way, it might be, we're really hopeful that this intern idea will work out as to help us with our planning and our networking. And so anyway.
So I guess we can segue onto our last subject, or our second class, sorry. So we can talk about potential summer projects. So there are a few ideas here. We already touched on some of them, like a social or a candidate forum for the August primary. There's also a couple of other ones that haven't really been touched on, so I'll just talk to them and then again open the floor. So citywide panels one on civic engagement or an NPA history teach-in, going towards individual ward projects. So like something like a porch concert, neighborhood walking tour, block party, and then I think Barbara, you added the outreach one in here. Did you mean to add it in summer projects? Or did Nora add
Because that was one I had sent.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't put it in summer project.
I was going to put it at the end. I just wanted to be sure that I was reading it correctly. Okay, great. So those are just some of the ideas. So I open the floor again to kind of come back to this conversation. It sounds like there is tepid interest in a candidate forum. It sounds like Ward 1, you already have one planned. And Chris, it sounds like you already have one for state's attorney, or you're working on all of them?
We were approached by some of the Senate candidates, and we were originally going to do the July thing like had been done in the past, but because of the concerns about attendance and feedback from the candidates, we thought, well, let's do it in May. But I think what we're hearing from the state's attorneys, May was too early for them.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we're going to do. We're pushing it over a month, so.
Okay. Yeah, because I just really feel like it will kind of be tough to get people to come out, even though, like, I think the Senate is easier because I think most of us, we all have the same senators.
Nope.
No.
Not we all.
Okay. I am wrong.
Ward 6.
Okay. My apologies.
Or not.
Like some
Not
little
an area of
yeah.
the city that has a lot of overlap with Ward 6.
Okay. Okay.
We go with South Burlington,
Okay.
Shelburne, Charlotte, Jericho, and Underhill.
Okay.
Of all the weird things.
Very
There you go. We're in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Legislature, the Senate districts, there's like 4 different levels of
Yeah.
political boundaries.
So, mostly, but, inviting other, like I do feel like it might make sense to try and consolidate for ones that there's a lot of overlap. I know it might be difficult in terms of accessibility, but I would probably say like the consolidation, we can, if we put a little bit of planning to it, like we can consolidate it in a way that is an accessible location that folks can come to by public transportation, parking, et cetera, make it a reasonable time for everybody. And then that makes it a bit easier. I don't know if we'll have that luxury with House candidates, because I know in Ward 2, at least we have 5 different House reps, so we have a lot. So that one we might not be able to consolidate, but that would be, I don't know. I think having something in June or July would be beneficial for some of the statewide offices. So maybe what we can do is the wards that are interested, I think there's a representative from each of the wards tonight, or we can follow up. Maybe we can say, like, if there are wards that are interested, we can know what that list is and then have an email thread or something to start planning that. Is that good? Everyone feel okay with that? I'm trying not to call votes again. So at minimum, it sounds like 2 and 3 we're interested in, or you already have something in the works, or what were you?
It's in the works.
Yeah,
It
okay.
hasn't been finalized, but I think there was, recognizing that it was broader appeal, it's like, hey, we could do the legwork and then have the other boards sign on and
co-sponsor.
sponsor it.
Yeah. Okay.
Why reinvent the wheel and do it, to your point, do
Okay.
the same thing multiple times over?
Yeah.
Run our candidates ragged.
I mean, Chris, if you'd be okay with kind of owning that and making sure all the wards are looped in.
Okay.
I think, are there any other wards, does that sound okay? To any other wards that might be interested in doing something like that?
I think 4 and 7 might be. We've been in touch with some of the candidates, and I had to pull up my email to remember this, but we're having some folks come in June, but not all of them. Some folks reached out to us
right
as part of their campaign and said, can we come speak? And we said, sure. we're planning to invite others, but I don't know how much traction has happened there. So I think, especially on the Senate level, I think we'd be very interested in joining forces, but I guess I shouldn't say I think we would be. We might be very interested, because I'm also like, what if we don't have any other agenda items for that month?
Yeah. I think that's fair. And then I think that is also an easier lift. Like if Ward 3 is already planning on doing something, like great if we can co-sponsor as the different wards are, it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
Any other wards have any other thoughts? And I, of course, like Carol, you had mentioned with Ward 1 what you're having, and that you said that's in May or that's in June?
It's going to be in June.
Okay, good. Okay, I was like, oh my gosh, if it's May, we can panic. But yeah, we can kind of between the two, and then that kind of give options to folks of what is most accessible, what is easiest for them to get to.
And sorry, which candidates are you guys having in June? The Senate?
We were able to reach 3 of the 4 state senators.
Okay.
So we couldn't, Tanya was not available, but Martine and Elaine and
Great. And you are Ward 8.
I'm Ward 1,
Ward 1.
Carol Livingston.
Okay.
And maybe that's what needs to happen, maybe sort of tied to the notes, is just a note to everybody that that's what's happening, and that you can let us know that if you're interested in coming, or just come. But I just want you to know where we are and when we are.
That's great, thanks. Because it'd be important to get all that if we're going to start pushing it out to our residents.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm sorry, your name is?
I realized I should have introduced myself.
No.
I'm Annie Lawson. I'm in Ward 4, but Wards 4 and 7 do our NPAs together. And my understanding is we're the only ones who still co-host.
And I'm sorry, you are?
My name is Mark Standard. I'm in Ward 2.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other feedback on this topic? So summary, Ward 1 and Ward 3 are going to take lead on some already planning events, and as the other wards are interested, they will either promote, support, et cetera, et cetera.
I guess the only thing I have to add on this is, like, I know all the candidates are going to be reaching out to you guys, like, right now, but the vast majority of normal people will not pay attention to the primary until, like, July. So that's also a consideration. It's, like, making sure that it's timed to when people will be, paying attention to this stuff and wanting to hear more from the candidates.
And it's hard if you don't meet in July.
It is, yeah.
So that's why we're doing it in June.
I think that's like an argument for doing a bigger event that like could be co-sponsored by a few wards later in the summer.
Charlie, does he have headphones on? Did you say that you and Jess had talked about a July picnic again this year for Ward 2?
So what she often does, so the community dinner for the Old North End Community Center.
So she's going to have a dinner, as she always does. So there'll be an Old North End community dinner in July, outdoors. So I tried to send an email on this, but it didn't go out, so I'm going to resend it. But anyway, so she's doing one outside, and in the past, the NPA would do something. They would invite all the elected officials from the area to go there and sit at a table, and then they could move around and people could talk to various city councilors or state reps or senators or whatever. So she's definitely going to have a dinner outdoors in July, weather permitting. And then however the Ward 2 NPA wants to get involved with that, they're welcome to, or Ward 3, et cetera.
Who's having a dinner? I'm sorry.
So the Old North End Community Dinner will happen in July, like we have in the past. It'll be outdoors, and if the NPAs want to participate in that to some degree, they're welcome to participate in it.
And maybe, and we haven't talked as a Ward 2 yet about what we're doing in July yet, so I won't totally speak, but we could do something like we did last year that kind of combines a lot of what we're talking about, where we invite all of the people running in the primaries to attend the dinner, and it can be a little bit more casual. That way, people are thinking about the primaries now, so it serves that need, but it's also slightly different than what the other wards have hosted. So, and it just gives folks multiple opportunities to try. So if we're having it, that was my big concern. I was pretty sure that Jess had planned to already have it. So if we're having something anyway, we can talk as a steering committee.
Yeah, so we've never had like a Zoom management for it. There's never been a camera, so it's different than a typical NPA meeting.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think I don't think was it a meeting? Did we technically call it a meeting last year when we had I can't remember. I wasn't there.
Was it well attended by the candidates?
I wasn't there.
Okay. Talk to Jessica.
Yeah, Jess will know. Jess will definitely know. Okay. Okay. I think that's good conversation on one summer project. Is there anything else? You were just clicking your pen, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm like looking for the little motion. Anything else?
I wouldn't do well at an auction, I don't think.
No. You'd spend a lot of money by accident. Anything else that folks would like to bring up?
Summer projects.
Yes. Go,
Okay.
Charlie.
So I've actually got 2 ideas for projects, and the reason I'm promoting them is because I'd like more of the NPAs to work together more often. And so the one is in the winter and one is in the summer. So the summer one is something that I actually brought up to the Vermont Expos 20 years ago. Okay, and I've had conversations with their administration a few times over the years, but nothing's ever happened with it. So my idea is to get together, the NPAs get together with the Burlington School District and the Winooski School District and possibly the South Burlington School District. And whenever there's a home game for the semi-professional team at Centennial Field, that basically the NPAs and the school systems distribute 2 or 3 or 4 or 500 free tickets because the seats are empty anyway, you see. And so the administration of the team has been favorable of doing that in the past, but I haven't spoken to them about that in the last couple of years. But the last time I did, they said, "Oh, yeah, we're definitely willing to talk about that." But then see, we would have to somehow help organize it and make sure that there's only a certain number of children per adult. So we would have to make sure that there were enough adults there to basically make sure that everything was appropriate. But if anybody wants to work on that, that's one good way, I think, for the NPAs to promote working together and finding a project that I think would be very popular with the public and fill up those stands for those games so that they're over full, basically fill up all those seats, which benefits the team. And
To clarify, it's like the high school baseball games. Or no.
Minor league monsters.
Minor league. Okay.
Lake
It is the Lake
Monsters.
Monsters.
Lake Monsters.
Okay. Okay. So we would work with the high schools to give free tickets to those games, is what you're proposing.
yeah, so they would figure out who to give the tickets to.
Okay, so the
See,
high
I'm thinking as a reward.
we're just giving the money to say like,
I don't think there's going to be any money involved.
oh,
I don't think there's
okay.
much of any money involved. That wasn't part of the deal. But it would basically be up to the schools to decide who gets the tickets. So especially for kids who are doing well. You know, they're getting all Fs and now they're getting all Ds. And so you kind of give them some kind of a reward. See, of course, back when it was the Vermont Expos, it was more of a big deal, but it's not quite as much as a big deal now. But I think that would be a good thing for the NPAs to get together in the summer and like an all wards kind of thing and just promote the baseball team and to help the schools with like a summer activity, you see. So if anybody wants to work on that, I'd be very happy to pitch in and work on that again.
Chris?
I was gonna say, I think it's a wonderful concept, and since you offered to do the summer version, I will gladly step up to do the winter version. And I would say that the UVM women's hockey team would be a good place to go because they have similar issues with attendance, so they play really well. And we at Ward 3 had kind of batted around trying to reach out to some of the youth centers to bring some of those folks out there because hockey is for everyone, and we want to make sure that people have that opportunity. And as a side note, the Burlington Amateur Hockey Association does provide scholarships. They have a partnership with the Boston Bruins, and they have a Learn to Play program. And it's like you sign up and you get all the equipment for $200, and even $200 is prohibitive for some families. And so there was talk about, well, maybe we can bring the business community and get some scholarships for them. But getting introducing people to the game, providing, support for the local community, and just building the community of going there and having the opportunity to interact, with your neighbors and the group, between the periods. I think there's value in that for sure. So I'd be willing to do the winter version.
So are you talking about players or fans?
I'm talking about bringing the kids in, like you were suggested in the summer. You can bring them to the baseball game. We'll take them to the hockey game, and just get them out and have some fun and something positive, for the kids that don't always have something positive to do.
Yeah.
So what would be required from the NPAs? What would be the effort of just kind of like getting the people who can then contact the kids, or like
It's
how?
I'm just trying to throw the name NPA on there to try to raise the status of the NPAs and try to get some of the all wards people together and working on a project, because I know from in the past that the NPAs were the strongest when the all wards were happening like every 3 months, and a lot of people on the all wards knew each other. And so that's when the NPAs were the strongest, is when there were a lot of all ward meetings and they were working on projects. Like we used to do this thing, like every year there would be an NPA meeting at Contoys, and you would pick one specific, like we did at Parks Department one year. And then another year it had something to do with the police. And so the NPAs would sponsor some big event. In addition to their regular monthly meeting, there would be an event that would happen at Contoys.
Well, we had what we had thought was in addition to getting the people out was to do a partnership, and hockey fights a lot of things, but to my knowledge they haven't fought for homelessness yet. So we thought maybe like a winter game like December or January where we could go and like do a collection and maybe partner with Street Cats or some other organization that does direct outreach and encourage people to bring like the supplies, the coats, the mittens, the socks, and all the different things that people need in the winter months. And that would be a tie-in too, but it would also directly impact our communities, I think, in a positive way.
I think from a logistical point of view, I'm wary of a summer thing that involves schools, because the schools are just going to be kind of non-functioning at that point. So I feel more personally optimistic and interested in a winter type event, but I think I like the idea of sports and outreach to kids who are, then outreach to parents and growing the visibility that way.
Well, do you want me to tell me the next agenda? Do you want me to talk about the winter project that I had in mind?
Sure.
I had only one person in the room that's probably heard before, but okay. So town meeting day is a tradition in the state of Vermont. Vermont's famous for it. People love it. And so my idea is to, which I've worked on this to a very small degree over the years, but I'd like to see the NPA sponsor a town meeting day event every February in Burlington. Most likely it would start at Contoys Auditorium. So, of course, it's completely non-binding, but usually by the first day of February, the city knows what's going to be on the ballot. And so, like the first week of February or so, somewhere near there, you just have a regular Saturday town meeting day in Burlington as if it was a regular town meeting day, you see? And basically, so you have like a little breakfast thing, and then you have some of the meeting, and then you have a lunch thing, and then you have the meeting, and then you have a dinner thing, and so people can come and go as they want, and you just pretend it's a real live town meeting. I personally think that would be very popular, but again, I'm trying to put the NPA's name on that. You see, I'm trying to build up the prestige of the. So I'd like the NPAs, like people from the all wards or something, to get together and start talking about that and working with the city to try to figure out how feasible it would be to schedule Contoys Auditorium all day Saturday, the first week of February, which is probably going to be a major challenge. But see, that's just another one. I'm trying to figure out how to get the steering committee members to work together and to raise the prestige of the NPAs to where they were in the past. Because the NPAs were really strong from about 2008 to 18, 20, and then it kind of fell off a cliff because of COVID. And they're still trying to get back to where they were. So that's why I'm really encouraged by Wards 4 and 7, because for like 30 years, the strongest NPAs were Wards 2 and 3. Like in many of those years, especially the early years from the 1990s, Wards 2 and 3 were the only active NPAs. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Wards 4 and 7 totally got, they just got so well organized. They were the most influential NPAs in the city. It happened almost overnight. And I can tell you the names of the people, of the steering committee members that did that. But that's when the NPAs were really strong, is when 2-3 was really strong, and 4 and 7 was really strong, and 5 and 6 were kind of like, you know, they'd function for a year or two, and they would disappear for a year or two, and then they would come back for a year or two. And then, so I'd like to see the NPAs get back to where they were. They were very influential in the city, and that's why they suddenly got $2,500 per year, because they see they were stronger, and they made more demands, and they got $2,500 apiece per year. And then I think for COVID, I guess it went up to $3,000. But I'd personally like to see the NPAs come back stronger than ever. But I do understand that people don't go to meetings like they used to, and people don't have as much time to do things as they did in the past. But I just like the good old days when the NPAs were very powerful in the city, and department heads were very careful what NPA. They had to be careful about what NPA meetings they went to, because they had to be cautious of who their audience was because of certain subjects and things. But like, as I said earlier, like between like 2000 and 2010, the NPAs weren't really very strong. And so department heads could simply say, oh, the only NPA I'll go to and give a presentation to would be Wards 2 and 3. I won't go to any other. And the department heads could just like dictate. They just say, nope, that's the only one I'm going to. That's the only one with anybody going there. That's the only one being recorded and broadcast on Channel 17. So that's the only one I'm going to. But then the NPAs got stronger, and they could be more demanding of city officials to come to their meetings. And that's just, I'm probably talking too much here, but.
So I guess I personally like all of these ideas, speaking for myself, but I do think, like, as Charlie, you kind of touched on it, like, we would need to have, like, someone owning the planning of it. And I think that's probably the hardest part. Yeah, so I guess sticking with the agenda, technically speaking, going back to the baseball one, do we think there's an opportunity of working with, like, the Boys and Girls Club? Like, are there other organizations that we could work with instead of the schools, knowing that the school is out over the summer? I don't have kids. I'm not really in the childcare scene, so I don't know how any of that works. So I asked that kind of as an open question, if that could be something that folks think could be a way to do it.
Yeah, King Street Center.
King Street Center, yeah. Okay.
The why.
The why.
And these are all in different words.
That.
You know, once again, go back to the founding purposes, some of the things we're supposed to do. Like, one thing I think we've done before, and other boards have done, is invite the commissioners, you know, and like maybe get lists and say, hey, give me a list of all of the people in X ward that serve on one or more city commissions, and then try to bring in the public works or, you know, police commission, whatever the different commissions are, and get that, because that's what the NP is supposed to do, is inform not just the council, but the commissions. And we always talk about the council, but we kind of forget about the work of the commissions out there, and that's another thing to do. And I'm going to hop here if you want to cut me off, I'm out of line, but the budgeting piece, I'll save that. Never mind.
Okay, so about that. So that's something that Wards 2 and 3 actually did around 2010 to 2015. So instead of inviting the city's department heads to come to talk about something, instead we would invite the commissioners. Because, see, that's a whole different level. See, you're going to get a different presentation from commissioners than you are from department heads. So that's one of the things that Wards 2 and 3 did for a period of time. And then those steering committee members fell, and then the COVID thing happened, so everything kind of collapsed. But that was working really well. And I know that we did that especially with the police commission, because you get a totally different feeling between having a commissioner or to come to the NPAs and make a presentation versus the chief of police coming to an NPA and giving, I see, a presentation. So it's totally different, and that's why we did that for several years.
The best were when you had the both of them to go together. Those were really exciting.
Yeah, you can get them together, yeah.
A really interesting idea.
Yeah. Now, would we say that would be something that would be of interest all wards, like planned together, or like just as an idea for individual wards to have at their meetings? Charlie, was it, I guess you mentioned it was 2 and 3 previously.
I mean, my thought was just let the individual MPAs reach out to the commissioners in their wards so that they can make those connections.
Right, yeah. And they list all commissioners by wards, right?
I think so.
Okay.
I think,
Maybe
having looked
some.
at the city website, I think some commissions are listed out by ward.
Yeah.
And others aren't.
Okay.
Some are listed out by political party.
Yeah.
And others aren't.
One is.
But
The one I'm on the BRB, so that's, I'm clouded by that one of what applies there versus elsewhere. But yeah, I think that's a really good, yeah.
Kind of corollary to that, but something that I could see being, making sense in a more concentrated way, either by like sort of 1 and 8 or 4 and so, like whatever, or everybody could do their own. Whenever, I don't totally know exactly the timeline on how vacancies work. I know that all of the applications for a bunch of vacancies are coming up, but it would be nice to like sometime before that potentially do some kind of panel where we bring in folks on some of the most popular boards and commissions and then have them talk about, here's the things that we did, and we will have these vacancies coming up. But I don't think the timing for that necessarily might be the summer. I think it would probably be sometime in the spring.
Yeah. They're always due mid-May, and then the June city council meeting is when they pick. But if there's vacancies throughout the year, that's a little bit different. But I agree. I love that. I went to one of those and I learned a lot. Okay. So I guess to kind of close the discussion, and I was touching on it a little bit, I think one thing that would be good for us as like a next step ahead of the next meeting is like with these different initiatives, I think I haven't heard anything negative towards anything that anyone brought up. It might make sense if there are folks interested in kind of spearheading it and being the one to say like, okay, I'll contact the baseball team, or I'll contact the schools and just spearhead that and send it, since we have the whole email group. And then if like 2 or 3 folks could help with each one, how do we feel about that?
I guess I just need to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm one of 4 steering committee members.
Yeah.
And I'm not straight. So that's where I'm going to put my energy is my NPA.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
If something
Totally.
happens and we can piggyback on it, or, I don't want to put a wall up. It's just, I don't want to promise something that I can't do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, to that point, it kind of sounds kind of like what Romeo was saying earlier about the multiple meetings, because to make this happen, we're going to have more meetings too.
I'm trying to do it by email. That's where I'm like that's kind of my thinking is that is in the back of my head of like, and the other thing I'm thinking of is ultimately like we can have great conversation, but like to actually take action, someone does need to own it. And what comes after that is probably dependent on what it is. But, I think we are in agreement that a lot of the ideas here are good, but if we want to take the next steps, we should have someone own it. But I'm with you, honestly. Like I too, like there's a lot going on, and that's where like I personally wouldn't want to like lead one of these, but like, can I support Charlie in, planning once we kind of get a little bit further? Sure. So maybe Barbara, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer really quickly something from Wards 4 and 7 that I really was inspired by, 2 weeks ago was they had a community member who was not on the steering committee, Ren, who just stood up and said, like, I really want to make this childcare thing happen in the gym. I don't want to be on the steering committee, but this is the thing that's important to me that, like, I can do on my time. So, like, that's another option, too, is, like, if there's folks who come to the NPA but don't want to do the steering committee thing, like, how can you engage them on what they're interested in? So I thought that was really cool to see somebody stand up and just, like, say that they'll do that.
Yeah, that was cool.
context was we were taking nominations for folks to join the steering committee because our turnover and voting happens in April for some reason. And we've had trouble like retaining people. So what we said was, if you don't want to serve on the steering committee, but like you can commit to putting out the lawn signs, that's your job. You don't have to be on the committee. So we were like pitching it as if someone can commit to doing a job a month, and that's I think where Ren said I can commit to booking the gym so that there's an open gym for kids to play in, which was great. And I'm right there with you. I don't think I can commit to much all word stuff, unfortunately. And I really like these ideas, and I'm not speaking up to own them because I don't think I have capacity.
So I'm trying to think of how we can kind of close this and leave it open-ended, because I think one thing that perhaps we can do in our individual NPAs is bring up some of these ideas, and maybe there is someone that will step up and be like, yes, like I work for the Lake Monsters, like I can, or like something like that, and see if that helps. And then as we can keep following up on some of these items, and if they take off, like Charlie, I just keep using you as the example, sorry. But like if the idea with the Lake Monsters works out, it takes off and we get it, great. I think especially because it's a little bit different depending on what we're investing in it, but that seems like a relatively low lift. And same thing with the commissioners as well. Like I think that's something, if it's a lower lift and if it takes off, great, and we can keep following up. Yes.
Yeah, last thing I'll say on this is like, if there's projects that you want to make happen, but it's capacity that's getting in your way, like please talk to me, because I have time, and like especially over the summer when there's not a lot of meetings, I don't want to be sitting at City Hall like bored out of my mind. Like give me things to do, I'll do it. And then the other thing I wanted to say is like some of these project ideas, like the porch concerts, the neighborhood walking tour, those are things that I found in the NPA archives, like on posters from like the 80s, 90s, where wards were sponsoring things like porch concerts in Ward 6, I think was the one. And I was just like, this is so cool that people were able to like organize and like orient around like the really fun stuff, especially for the summer. So that's why I wanted to put it out on there and kind of like maybe get people thinking in a different way than we usually think about the NPAs these days. And if you do want to look at these older materials, they're in this big binder in my office that Amy and Tom got to check out last week. But it's very inspiring to see what folks were doing back then.
Just to be a cynic, I mean, I think the city has changed because the school has not provided housing for kids on campus, so all of that overflow has come into buildings and houses that used to be occupied by Burlington residents. And I think that's where you're losing a lot of the community involvement, because people are moving outside of the city, especially if you're starting a family or you want a 2-bedroom, God forbid. I think that, my take is that the school has ruined a lot of the community aspect.
And that's exactly what people were saying in 1985 in this NPA documentation. It is kind of a trip to like see that these issues that we talk about now were almost like the same all the way back.
How was the unhoused population back then?
I mean, that's not as specifically addressed, but the UVM stuff is just like over and over.
Well, I think that's also a cause from the UVM. I mean, you have a lot of affordable housing that has gone to students because landlords can get so much money for 1 bedroom.
On this porch concert idea, would we be allowed to pay the musicians for their time? Because a lot of these people, it's their job.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't ask an electrician to show up at your house and work for free.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is something that.
But, I'm saying, under the guidelines, I couldn't really.
Right. It's like we would have to look at at those like 3 goals, like if you're gonna do a project or an event, and looking at like, is there a way to promote the NPA? Is there a way to ask residents how they're feeling about the city? And is there a way to inform people about city programs? And like probably, but we just have to get a little more creative about that.
Imagine you could say the NPA is a city program, right?
Yeah.
So you could just, I think it seems like you'd be able to just say like, this porch concert event is brought to you by the NPA, here's who we are, here's how we meet. I feel like, would that tick the box?
We have
Get
some
up
new
and separate
zines.
and give a little spiel. Hey, thanks for coming.
Right. Thanks for coming out to the Ward 3 Summer
And-
Concert Series.
Well, there used to be one in Battery Park, but it was, I think, through the mayor's office, but let's bring it back.
All right, well, keeping an eye on time. Any other thoughts, comments on this? Great. So our last agenda item is just for open discussion. So the 3 items that we had that have kind of come in, so the outreach that we mentioned about expanding language access to meetings and working with trusted community voices, seeing how many MPAs have adopted the apartheid-free pledge, and I guess sort of related to our first topic, topics MPAs choose to ask city councilors for input. How would we like to start? Maybe start with the outreach one. Carol, do you want to take the floor?
Real quick, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's sort of perennial. Every time we have an NPA All Wards, I ask, we talk about this, and it's, I think I would look forward to having some real concentrated time to help each other with this. There is an organization called the Trusted Community Voices. I think that the leadership for the New American community is pretty busy. I mean, I think it's just a lot. But I think I don't know what connection there is between MPAs and the Trusted Community Voices. And I feel like there's some organizations that are working parallel to one another and that we really could try to benefit from that. We're a bunch of old white people, basically, at our NPA, retired. We're the ones who have, the time to do it. We have a few young people who are coming, which is great. But, our ward includes Riverside. It includes, we do not have folks coming from communities that would really be great to have people come. So, and there may be a variety of things, maybe childcare, maybe language, and maybe don't really see the point. Because a lot of people don't know what the NPA is sort of across the city. So this can certainly be tabled. I don't think we have energy or the time to talk about it, but I just would be interested if there's anybody else who would like to have some time devoted to that in the future.
We've definitely talked about it in Ward 2 before, and it's something that we've kind of tossed around of like, how do we get to the answer? Because it's tough to get to an answer if folks aren't coming. And yeah, so I agree. I think it would be good to dedicate a little bit more time to and see what we can pull our resources, and also like what resources we can work with. I don't know, Barbara, if the city could connect us with folks, or like, I know a lot of the people working with Trusted Community Voices are very busy, but like if we could talk to folks, that would also probably be helpful to make sure we're all putting our efforts behind things that really will work and benefit the community.
Yeah, it's tough because it's so ward specific, and I think that's where like all of us we need the program, like the TCV group, to know which communities are in which places and like who wants to engage, because it's just gonna look different in all the wards. But yeah, and I don't necessarily know what that looks like besides like connecting some of the Trusted Community Voices. And if people don't know what that is, it's basically a group of like liaisons that the city pulls together from several of the like larger New American communities and it's like in the greater Burlington area. It's not super geographically limited, but they meet regularly and basically like are a voice to the city and then back to their communities about what's going on in local government. So it's really interesting, and like I don't know much more than that, honestly. And something I've also heard from this group is like, especially these days, a lot of New Americans just do not, they see the NPAs as part of the government and they do not want to interact with, they just don't want to go to government spaces. I've heard that from several folks. So it's really a challenge, and I don't know if any of us are like well positioned really to, you know, understand all of that. But yeah, I think like some of the like wards 1, 2, 3, like those come to mind for me as like that's where we start with making those connections. So yeah, I think I'd love to like work more on this with you folks.
And I would add to that, in my neighborhood in the New North End, I think there's plenty of folks who are New Americans, but there's plenty of folks who are people of color who are also not coming to our meetings. So it's not just something to feel, I think there's challenges with it feeling accessible and inclusive regardless of whether somebody is an immigrant or not. When you said like it's a lot of retired old white folks, ours has it's got a broader age range, but it's like almost exclusively white. And so there is something that's preventing folks from feeling like they want to come. And I don't know what the answer is, but I would love to spend time in this setting seeing what could be more effective in making it feel welcoming.
Yeah, maybe at a future All Wards we could, because the office that interfaces with the Trusted Community Voices Group is the REIB, so we could see if somebody from that office could come like meet with this group and figure out what some next steps could be.
Yeah, I think that's a nice idea of a next step. Yeah.
Okay. So there was a question, and I forget who asked it now, so apologies. There was a question about which NPAs have adopted the apartheid-free pledge that we wanted to include. I know that Ward 2 has adopted it.
Can I actually clarify?
Yes.
I don't know who asked this question.
Okay.
As somebody who has worked on the apartheid-free communities thing, I can. I think a distinction here to be made is the resolution was asking for the NPA themselves to say we would like to be an apartheid-free community versus the resolution saying we would like to vote about whether Burlington would like to be an apartheid-free community in the town meeting day. So pretty much every NPA that voted for the resolution to say we'd like to vote on this was just voting on it. It wasn't saying we, as an NPA or an apartheid-free, were adopting the pledge, except Ward 6. They changed the language because they voted after town meeting day.
I see.
So theirs actually says us as well like to adopt the apartheid-free community pledge. I'd have to go back and look specifically at it, but I believe that's the distinction.
Okay.
As far as the ones that said we'd like to vote on it, that was not Ward 4 and 7, not Ward 8, and not Ward 3, I think, or 2, or I think it was 3.
Two did vote for the resolution.
Okay, so
yeah.
2 voted, and then 1 voted, 5, and then I think, 2. 5.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Did everybody vote yes? Who voted?
Yeah.
Okay. Did anyone in this room ask for that agenda item? Okay. I just want to be sure. Any other comments on that? All right, so the last one in the last couple of minutes that was under here, and again, I am not sure who added this. The topics NPAs choose to ask city councilors for input. Did anyone in this room put that as a suggestion? Was it you, Barbara? Okay. Was it you, Chris? Okay. Was that a hand raise or a stretch? Okay. Go.
I'm hesitant to open this one, but, we kind of touched about the priorities and that comment brought up about the cycles. I'm almost wondering, in respect the autonomy of each board, but would there be a benefit to have the NPAs all be on the same election cycle for steering committee members? And we redid our bylaws in Ward 3 about a year ago, coming up on last September, and we did a lot of analysis. We kind of put together a grid, which I think I shared with Barbara and maybe a few other folks here, but there's definitely some variation, and I think one of the bigger ones was the around the steering committee elections, when they took place, the timing, the method of voting, how, and like, I think some of the bylaws, it says, the terms are, from September 1st to August, but then they don't have the elections until the September meeting, so there's kind of like a gray area there. So I don't know if that's something folks would want to cover, but it crossed my mind, so I threw it out there. Silence speaks.
I'm speaking just for myself, not on behalf of anyone else on my steering committee, but I think one thing I like about the NPAs is that there is such like a great degree of autonomy. So I think my impulse, without thinking about it further, would be like, I think it's working okay this way. And I don't know if anyone else on my steering committee would agree or not.
It'll just come up and manifest in like the priorities discussion from time to time, but variety's good.
But I do think, to Barbara's point, I think as we, like with the priorities discussion, that might start to kind of point out places where we do need to standardize a little bit more. But I personally feel like maybe we should kind of let that ride and see, like, let's get a year down of that and, make sure that this is working like we intended it to with the resolution. And then if things need to change. All right. Go ahead.
I was just, no, it was okay. I was just going to throw in, I guess this could have been in the summer projects or the projects category, but just a thought. I think when so NPAs, we can come up with ideas and talk about our concerns and challenges and making sure that's getting voiced at City Hall. We're also a conduit from hearing from City Hall. I think the other thing that is interesting to me is like, how do we grow our practices of governing together and really growing our just like understanding about what's possible and imagining. And so one thing I've been learning more about recently is like participatory budgeting and the ways that they're doing that in other places, like Cambridge, Massachusetts, and that kind of thing. And so I don't know if it would be interesting to folks to have invite someone from the participatory budgeting organization that works with different municipalities on this and have them like do a talk with us about what they've done in other places. And maybe that's with all wards, this group. I think it would be really interesting potentially to do that with, your actual NPA. I don't know what our, we'll find out over the summer what our communities are wanting as we're doing this whole project. So I don't know what will fall out of that, but I know personally as a resident, I would be very excited if that was something that was on an agenda at NPA. Was like, how are people doing participatory budgeting in like other cities? What does that look like? So I don't know if that's intriguing, but if it is, we can talk to me more about it, I guess.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
Before we adjourn, I have not been at the last few all wards. Do we typically pick who? Because I know Ward 2 is responsible for organizing this all wards. Should we pick that now before we adjourn? I don't even know. I think Nora had volunteered us, if I remember correctly, but I don't know if that's correct. Would any ward like to volunteer to organize the next all wards meeting for Q3?
I'll volunteer Ward 3
Okay.
if I can get some help from our friends in Ward 8.
Sure, I think we can pitch in with that.
What is it?
On the cooperation front.
Thank you.
Yeah. When's would the next date be? It'd be whatever the 5th Wednesday or Thursday would be.
Sure.
Wait, what month is this?
Well, you get to pick.
Oh, we get to
Yeah.
pick.
I think we were doing like quarterly, roughly. So
Roughly.
yeah,
I don't
so
think
like
anybody is gonna want to meet over the summer.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So I think fall would be a good goal, but I don't want to speak for everybody.
Okay. September is still Q3.
That'll be great. Everybody will be feeling energized.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. Now can I have a motion to adjourn? Second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So moved. Our only Robert's rules of the day, other than me trying to avoid using the word vote for something.